We have a story that was written by Lidia Dinkova. This is story number 2. Lidia, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read you the headline, and I'm going to read you the first couple graphs from a piece you wrote in The Real Deal. Then I'll ask you to provide any kind of insight you can. You wrote the story. You might not feel comfortable commenting, but any kind of insight you can offer, we would appreciate. So again, coming from The Real Deal, Lidia, this is your piece. Headline: record deal. Monarch Tourmaline buying 801 Brickell for roughly $250 million. Subhead: unfazed by national CRE trends, which is commercial real estate trends, Nuveen Real Estate is selling 28-story building that's over 90% leased. In the first couple of graphs, Lidia, Monarch Alternative Capital and Tourmaline Capital Partners are buying the 801 Brickell office tower in Miami for about $250 million. The Real Deal has learned. If the deal closes at this price, it would mark a record for a South Florida office investment this year. Monarch and Tourmaline are buying 28-story building at 801 Brickell Avenue in Miami from Nuveen Real Estate, according to sources who put the price in the mid $200 million range. The deal is expected to close late this week or early next week. Adam Spies and Marcelo Falusto of Newark, along with Mike Davis and Dominic Montezemi of Cushman & Wakefield, are representing the seller. And the story goes on to say, Spies and Montezemi declined comment, and Davis didn't return a request for comment. Completed in 1984, the building spans 695,000 square feet, with roughly 415,000 square feet of that being offices. Property records show Nuveen, which is an investment arm of the Teachers Insurance and Annuities Association of America, better known as TIAA, had paid $80.3 million for the building in 2002. Boy, that's a hell of a pop in terms of pricing, Lidia. And also, too, why the hell would you pay record price for an office tower if supposedly nobody wants to go to the office anymore and they get to work from home? So, Lidia, can you provide some insight into that?
I sure can. So, yeah, it is a record pricing, but when I was speaking with sources for the story, they cautioned this as saying this is a record pricing, quote unquote, unfortunately, or quote unquote, sadly, because it's a record pricing for this year, given the high interest rates, but it's not beating last year's record. And in fact, there is a suspicion that it may be record, not just for South Florida for this year, but for like an investment sale in like in like major, basically all over the US. If we weed out things like owner occupier buyer and foreclosures of big loans, there's a lot of talk that this is actually going to be the biggest one. And again, sadly, because this breaks down to like below $600 a square foot just for the office space, that's not that high. Other things going on. It's my understanding that Nuveen had that on the market off and on for quite some time. So it was just like many of the other office deals that managed to close this year. This one took a while. And this has been a ubiquitous story with all the office sales in South Florida. You see them go on the market, go off, then something happens. They drag on for a while because usually buyers have to renegotiate financing. So yes, record deal, but with the understanding that it's a record deal for this year, considering that the pricing has been suppressed across the board this year.
Lidia, when you were reporting out the piece, I guess what I'm wondering is, why buy now? I know why you would want to sell now, but why buy now? Is it strictly driven by price? Is it driven by the fact that the story says 90% occupancy? Is it driven by the fact of the location? Why would somebody want to buy in a market which is still undetermined yet as to how many days a week people will be actually going into the office? Whether they go in the office at all? Are we moving away from the Zoom generation or the Zoom era? Remember, Zoom called a lot of their employees back to the office, only a few days a week. So can you just sort of answer that big picture question? Why would somebody want to buy office now? Did anybody provide any kind of insight?
So not particularly for this story, but in like asking this question for any other commercial real estate deal, two things have come up as the answer. And the Monarch and Tourmaline deal for 801 Brickell hasn't closed yet, so I don't know about their financing, but sources did say it's favorable terms with 60% loan to cost, so not a very high leverage. So generally the buyers out there in the market who would be able to buy and are buying now would be, they would have the equity and they would have the closed discretionary funds, and they would have more cash on hand. They wouldn't be exposed that much to a loan. And generally, if they are, they would tag a lender who would offer more favorable terms than a bank. The second point, and the fact that we are exposed to work from home and lots of tenants like deciding to shave off a little bit of their footprint. Yes, that's true. Uh, but that just also varies on a case by case. It is in the end of the day, it is still Brickell, not downtown San Francisco. And there were companies that moved here for financial firms, tech firms in the past 3 years. So I guess if you're going to bet on an office market right now and you can afford to, you might as well just do it here as opposed to like somewhere else where the climate is much worse.